We humans are in a hurry, running from day to day, passing from year to year without thinking. We think about how much money we will make, what gifts to buy for the next holiday. We plan trips and life goes by in an instant. But there is always an emptiness that overwhelms us, and we ourselves know internally what needs to be done. But the question is, are we ready to do it? Who are we? Why are we here? Where do we come from? The first sage who asked himself these questions started philosophy as an eternal pursuit of knowledge. But the question here is not whether the answers will ever be found, but that the search never stops. In search of happiness, I myself saw the details and the small picture. I could see that seeking knowledge was something that was extremely interesting and curious to me, but at the same time, only after 3 years of searching and unsuccessful attempts, I was able to see the global picture. Now it is time for a new stage where you all get these details, and in 3 months understand as much as I myself managed in 3 years. It is time to continue this exploration of wisdom and knowledge together. For one. Hello everyone. Today I am visiting my friends Ivo and Emmy. Today I will introduce you to a man who is the author of more than 10 books, including You, The Source, You, The Manifestation, You, The Life, The Black Book, and The White Book. He graduated from Sofia University with a degree in physics, and today we will talk at length about what he does. I say welcome to Ivo. I am extremely glad. You graduated from Sofia University. Physics.
Quantum electronics and laser technology.
How does a physicist who has been taught to trust evidence and facts suddenly embark on the uncertain path of the spiritual?
From my point of view now, the path is safer than before, and from the point of view then, indeed, an uncertain path, but there is a moment. There are always so-called cathartic moments in one's life when things turn around and one really begins to search where one has not searched before. In this search, he is challenged to discover things unknown to him. It is this search that ultimately makes you step outside the framework of the standard, of what you have studied, of what you have done, for the sake of discovering the challenge that has come as the so-called catharsis. When you manage to overcome the catharsis, that is, you cross the border of the difficult, the problem, the step that prevents you from continuing to develop, you suddenly understand that the other path makes more sense, has more content, solves more questions, more problems, more beautiful, easier, and at the same time unknown.
That is, you want to say that it is then necessary for us to suffer and for something catastrophic to happen to us in order to truly realize ourselves.
In practice, it is not necessary. We need to challenge ourselves to come to this conclusion. Usually, however, we are afraid, we are careful of the unknown, because for us the unknown is scary. We dare not step into the unknown water simply because we do not know what is in it. And instead of going to explore it as such, we prefer the known certain to the unknown, uncertain.
In your theory of cogitality, you combine physics, philosophy, esotericism, partly religion, psychology, biology. Some people would say that you are completely crazy.
If we have to paraphrase crazy a little, logical, smart, acting, but that's not the point here. In the end, the information is the same. We are the ones who divide the information into psychology, into mathematics, into physics, into biology, into medicine, on the principle that perhaps when we divide this information into parts and pieces, it will be easier to digest. And in this case, as we divide the whole into individual pieces of the puzzle, we study the piece but forget the global view. I'll give an example with artists. If an artist immerses himself in a detail, he can make a beautiful detail and at the same time not see the whole picture. The idea here of theory of cogitality is not just to see the pieces of the puzzle, not just to bury ourselves in them, not to be like horses with hoods. And let's also look for the global picture, because this puzzle somehow needs to be assembled, to be arranged in order to see the overall picture as such. And when you see the overall picture, you begin to understand that there are principles that ultimately operate everywhere, both locally and globally.
If you'll just let me interrupt you, is the global picture the same for all of us?
Everyone creates their own global picture, the way they will see it through their own filter. But the principles that operate in this global picture are the same for everyone.
That is, you want to say that there is a universal rule and principle for each of us that will work for all people on planet Earth.
Not only for the people of planet Earth, but for the entire universe. This is also true for the Galactic Federation, the Universal Council, and so on. These are things that are ultimately true of the universe itself. These are 5 laws of existence and 8 principles of life. 5 laws of existence and 8 principles of life. And when a person realizes this thing, understands it, and begins to observe the laws of existence of creation in general, and the 8 principles of development, he understands that the unknown becomes a challenge that is extremely beautiful. And once it has appeared before him, it is in his potential, in his possibilities of every single element to realize it as such. As soon as something manifests itself to you, it means that it is right for you. Otherwise, it will not manifest itself in front of you.
How then does each of us create our reality practically? That is, all this sounds wonderful, but how can we experience it in practice? That we are the ones who have this intervention, and not that everything is arranged for us, everything is predestined for us. We have some destiny, this is how it was written for us. How do we know that what we do really matters and that we did it?
It is a cycle of 9 frequencies, in which a cycle of 9 frequencies we create ourselves and the environment around us. Thus, through this cycle of 9 frequencies, every impulse, every act of thought in the potential of nothingness creates a pair of photons that stretch out, an effect discovered by Hong Tang, Yale University. When they stretch everyone's individual space-time.
That is, each of us has individual time and space?
At the same time, independently, self-syndicated, unique and unrepeatable. That is, each of us creates our own world, our own reality. And since all the elements gathered in a community have frequency portals between them, they all begin to think, see and believe that the world for them is one. And these are many individual parallel worlds, which, however, are connected to each other through frequency portals.
You said to think and believe. Where do our thoughts come from then?
The circle itself. So we are here to limit ourselves in one space and to know ignorance. I will give an example. In the potential, time flows at an infinite speed, and after it flows at an infinite speed, in an instant, all the information is collected in this potential. This is valid when this potential is at complete rest. With all this situation, it turns out that at a given point in space, there is a potential that knows absolutely everything. And here a paradox arises. If, for example, each one of us knows everything, does he then have the chance to experience not knowing something? It turns out that once you know everything, you don't know what is to don't know. But then do you know everything? And to solve this paradox, we actually limit ourselves from common knowledge in order to experience a given ignorance in this moment, here and now. And when we experience certain ignorance, we expand our potential and learn something new, then expand again, something new. This is how change and development occur.
I mean, if the only thing I know is that I don't know, do I know anything?
You actually know everything, but you are exploring ignorance. This is the meaning of existence, and the meaning of our existence is precisely in this model. We explore a certain ignorance, but we only explore it as a potential, as a possibility. We experience it.
Where does all this ideology of following your dreams, following your goals, doing things, achieving peaks, and what does purpose mean?
And what does purpose mean? The goal is a step that, when we reach, renders itself meaningless. It's endless. That's exactly why I say it's a circle, a spiraling, widening circle. In all this situation, we are constantly learning more and more. But since these possibilities are infinite, so is our existence. And this is the first law of existence,
Which is,
which is we exist, and that is unchangeable. Once we exist forever. Thus, it turns out that we are eternal. Yes, we may change the coats, we may change the shell, explore new and new unknowns, but either way, we never cease to exist as explorers of the unknown. And in fact, living from or life means exactly that desire, to explore ignorance in all directions.
in all this exploration of ignorance, which then is more real, our thoughts, our mind, our consciousness, or matter? Does not a great confusion arise in this study, and we at one point not only cannot know ourselves, but do not even know where to begin?
The question in itself is interesting, but at the same time, paradoxical. How real is the thought that the thought is unreal? In fact, we exist in the world that we have individually constructed, exploring a certain ignorance and the interaction of that ignorance with other such ignorances. We create ourselves and the environment around us. And in fact, the interactions between the self and the environment is the beauty of our existence. We explore these interactions throughout our lives. And when we exhaust ourselves from the very exploratory history of our existence, we change the coat or the hologram to continue exploring a new one. In this sense, there is no death.
What percentage of us come to these conclusions that we are simply changing the coat?
In fact, everyone knows it.
Is it really so?
Absolutely everyone knows it. They feel it inside themselves, and at the same time, locked in the shell of their own ignorance or their own shell, they accept themselves as an existing given and everything else as an unknown that is aggressive against them. And this unknown, the environment, was created by them themselves in their image and likeness. That's the beauty. In fact, even in the Boghor Bible or the Besika Bible, it is said like this: a mindset that is in motion creates a limitation that is ignorance, that creates reflections as an environment, but the limitation itself is a reflection of the reflections it creates. In this way, we loop ourselves into a constant, endless interaction with the environment we create. And so we create the interaction with each other, the relationships with each other. And if we think about it, what does interaction mean? In lone action. That is, we have done something as a result of which we have an adverse reaction. And so the law of attraction arises. What you give, you receive in return. In fact, this is the fourth law of existence. What you put out is what you receive. If we radiate happiness, trust, faith, love, gratitude, this is what we will receive. If we radiate hate, hatred, malice, jealousy, self-pity, sacrifice, this is what we will get, because the environment is our reflection, and we ourselves are the reflection of the reflections we create. And thus, ultimately, we are a reflection of ourselves. Therefore, having goals is slightly wrong.
How would you put it?
Get to know others by changing yourself for the sake of others. And then there's this cycle, this roundabout where we study. Ignorance studies knowledge. Yes, unknown knowledge, but knowledge.
That is, I can safely conclude that you are saying that happiness is a choice. Being happy, inspired, and exploring life is a choice.
Correct. And now think about it. So we are happy because we chose to be that way. That is, we have chosen this state. Happiness is a choice of state. Very true. We have chosen the state of being happy. And what happens doesn't matter because what happens is actually the happiness we have chosen. And as soon as this happens to us, then we are already happy. We have created this state and we explore our interactions with the environment because of the state we have chosen, happiness. If we choose a victim, then what will we explore? The status of a victim. And all our interactions and relationships will be a response to the state we have chosen. We have chosen a victim. Therefore, we will be shown images, events, incidents that correspond to our desire to be victims. If we have chosen a state of happiness, then anything that matches these interactions will be happiness.
Okay, but if I, you, the people who are here around us right now, all of us have chosen a state of happiness, but still there are still so many wars in the world. There are still so many attacks, accidents as they call them, people die, infections. How can all this be explained if I, you, and everyone around us have chosen happiness? Shouldn't it be gone?
So the idea of happiness is to always have its polarity, the counterpoint. Because how will you know happiness if we are all happy? The idea is to have the opposite polarity as well, so that you can realize what happiness itself is. And here comes the choice of polarities. That is, we are always made of two polarities. We exist, but we are made of two polarities, of two opposites, and one flows into the other. That is, we are always flowing like waves from one state to another and so on. But in the end, we stay within the limit we have chosen. And if we choose that limitation to expand, we will expand and evolve and change. That is, when we choose to be victims, we will explore the victim state. If we choose to be happy, we don't put conditions on happiness. We are just happy. And whatever happens to us, we are happy because happiness has no conditions. This is our choice for status. In order to know happiness itself, it is necessary to have the other polarity. It is necessary to have other elements that desire the other state. But now think about it. The state of happiness has its polarity. Let's say sacrifice. And without sacrifice, there will be no happiness. And without happiness, there will be no sacrifice. And here is the interesting point that the same object, for example, can be used for killing, say a pen, but it can also be a wonderful helper, used for writing. Here is the subtle point. We are the ones as limitations who create a given meaning to the given object, state, event, what to serve us. And at an event, someone will say, this is happiness, this is wonderful, this is beautiful. Next to him, one will say, nonsense, this is misfortune, this is destruction, this is self-delusion. And on that thought, is the madman mad or a genius? That is the question, and it is our choice that we will give importance to. If I reach out with a pen to gouge out your eye, it is a weapon. The same pen, if I begin to write, in the name of giving knowledge to the environment around me, it is an extraordinary helper. We are the ones who give meaning to the environment around us, and we therefore choose the environment around us. We create this environment, and at the same time, we are created by it.
If we are made of atoms and particles that are arranged by an strict and unique way, How then can we think we have free will in the whole thing if every single structure is ordered?
In fact, all scientists know that atoms and particles do not exist. It's a cloud of probabilities. Electrons are a cloud of probabilities that are not actually chosen. The core is a cloud of probabilities that we have an idea how to choose, but haven't chosen either. And then comes the choice version, the choice to choose. When we choose and focus on a state, we have a core formed. And when we choose in the cloud of probabilities that are an environment for ourselves, for the nucleus that we have chosen, for the proton, a cloud of probabilities appears around us, in which we, the moment we choose a given state, begin to interact with it, and form once again the cycle in which one flows into the other.
And he is infinite.
Infinite. This whole state is infinite. And for this reason, it is proved in theory of cogitality that the source is but one.
I just wanted to ask you, as a physicist who graduated, where do you find the commonality between physics and the Bible, for example? That sounds strange.
Yes, there are many great questions in the Bible about this cycle between the source and us. That's exactly what I have been explaining so far. We are the very source that limits itself to no ignorance. The idea is that this limitation that we create through ourselves, we create these limitations from the common potential of all knowledge. Limitation itself, within the local plan of limitation itself, is in ignorance. It is so ignorant that it excludes even the source itself. And from there comes a conflict between the local knowledge that has the limitation and the general potential from which it originates. And in the Bible, little by little, this is told. But the idea is to read things in an energy perspective. And if physics has not reached that level of counting on the energy itself in some way so as to realize, illuminate the energy itself and the potential to know it, it has no way, from the point of view of the very limitation, to go beyond itself. Here, an exceptionally developed consciousness is required for a person to go beyond the framework of what is permissible in order to know what is unacceptable. The idea seems a little paradoxical, but it is to know the unknowable. Let's solve a problem by assuming there are no problems, to see the invisible and so on.
The ancient sage Rumi says, I went in search of God and found myself. I went in search of myself and found only God.
This is the loop I'm talking about, that loop of the 9 frequencies. So we have one potential as source, we have general rules of life and the individual form that explores the general rules and source itself to create itself.
Sorry to interrupt you, but who sets these general rules?
General rules are defined depending on the limitations we wish to experience as limitations.
That is, they are not preset?
They are not preset. And we, in our seminars, in our schools, lessons, if you will, give an example by mentally making people see themselves, let's say, in a planet that is near the sun, Sirius B. It breathes hydrogen there, and because it breathes hydrogen, the planet is mostly covered by water, almost like planet Earth, except there's a bit more water, and most of the creatures there are amphibious, in the form of amphibians, lizards, and so on. And when an individual sees himself in this way and realizes that he himself is there, we arrive at the idea of this trinity. If he had chosen a parallel reality that is conditions to explore Sirius B, he would have been an amphibian exploring those conditions. If he had wished to feel how, say, a plant on planet Earth felt, he would have been a grass, for example.
That is so we can be what we wish.
And we are always what we wish to explore. And here I answer again and bring you back to that question of choice. We choose to choose.
And there is no option in which we do not choose.
Even if we choose not to choose, says Sartre, we still choose.
Well, where does faith go in this whole thing then? Because a lot of people, sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of people rely on faith when they're in tough times and they need to believe in something or someone to make them stronger. In ancient times, people built whole cults with gods, very different in different religions, and this continues to this day. Where is all the interference of faith?
So the very etymology of the Bulgarian word viara should be explained. Vi, ya, and ra, in ya as self and ra as light. That is, in me is the light. The belief that everything is energy and energy is one, and we are confining infinite energy to explore a state of it. This is actually faith. In me is the light. The idea of realizing that we are only a sample of what we have chosen to be. And then comes that unity, one is all and all is one. And then it comes to the idea that we are all one, that we all contain the whole, and the whole is contained within us. Then we understand that all energy is one source, in which source we ourselves as sources explore various states of ours that we choose to explore. This constraint, the next constraint, and so on, an infinite set of constraints that explore interactions with each other. And that is the meaning of life. We fall into catharsis because we do not realize the meaning of our existence, exploring the unknown around us. And in fact, we created precisely to explore it, to explore these interactions and thus expand ourselves to infinity.
Something I've always wanted to ask you is, then both heart and logic, as they say, are they also part of your 9 frequencies? And secondly, if they are not, the heart or logic, emotions or logical thought, on which should we bet more?
Now I will add logic, heart, and mind. Logic is what adapts and filters us to experience given limitations. The heart emits those proton fields with which we create the environment around us. Thus, through logic and heart, we can experience the interactions between the self and the environment that we ourselves have created. But we must not forget the third element. Mind. All is mind. All is cogitality. The world is mental. And so we come to answer the word cogitality. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. René Descartes. The idea here is that René Descartes gave a much fuller definition of this mindset. Dubito, ergo cogito, ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. That is, it is necessary to have both polarities in order for me to exist. And when I have both polarities, only then I am, only then I exist. These two polarities arise from a single idea, from a single potential, from a unity that we all possess, from which we all derive. And thus it is concluded that the source is only one of all energy. In all this organization, heart, logic, or mind, 3 in 1. And there you have it, like the Holy Trinity from the Bible. And here we can tie them, intertwine them. Logic is the filtration that helps us adapt to an environment created by the heart through proton fields. But both the mind as logic and the heart as the proton fields that create our environment come from the same source. All is mind, the world is mental. And thus we ourselves create the mental world around us and the states we choose to experience, the states we choose to be. In fact, that's exactly what we're investigating. This study we call life.
Everything is connected in a wonderful way.
A unique way in a circle, and the combination of the three: logic, heart, mind. It shows all 9 frequencies as 3 spheres with 3 coordinate systems. It gives one whole. And these 9 frequencies make up our entire world. They are in a constant cycle, and one flows into the other. And it is endless. And only the focus that we will give, that is, the choice that we will make in the given moment, corresponds to what we explore, the state we have chosen.
Well, how can a person who is coming into this whole thing for the first time accept even a small part of it? Understand what the word cogitality really means. The whole theory of cogitality, you haven't done it in just a year. Actually, when did you start?
2005, just like I said, with a catharsis. Actually, my son was sick with leukemia, and in order to find an option for his treatment, I went in this direction. And regardless, in that time I thought I had failed to help my son. I had already started in that direction and had begun to realize that everything is energy, that everything revolves around potential, the knowledge that we can draw. We have a constant connection with it, and we don't really do it. And it was a paradox to me. Why don't we? And from there, how can a person accept all this? Well, here's the thin point. The idea is not to believe in something, for let's do it, because that seems paradoxical. How can I believe in something I've never tried? I have to trust him to that extent.
Do we have this trust in ourselves?
No, definitely not.
I mean, what are you saying?
Here is an example. We see a fruit,
Okay?
and can we say whether this fruit is tasty or not?
We can only speculate.
We can only speculate, and that's what we do. We manipulate and speculate, and actually the only way to tell what the fruit is after we taste it. Now here is the interesting point and paradox of our existence. What is the way to know how to know the limitation that we have chosen for ourselves? Well, if we try to know it, is the simple answer. And in fact, we experience our own choices.
Constantly.
Constantly, every moment. And in cogitality theory, we prove that we make choices 10 to the 44th times per second. And we are actually living through this choice, but they are so fast that we perceive them as an already made real environment. And we even talk about the environment being created a priori. In fact, Einstein, Rosen, Podolsky proved that there is no objective reality. It takes an experienced observer to have reality. And this is proven. The idea of accepting cogitality is not believing it. On the contrary, I'm even saying, don't believe me, check it out. Only by testing it, by tasting a fruit, can you tell whether you like it or not. Because the I don't eat fish version sounds like, but have you eaten fish? Well, no. And how come you don't eat fish? At least try it. I can't try it. Why don't you try it? Because I don't eat fish.
Okay, then where does all this go? Which, for example, many people say, I first want to see it, touch it, see the truth, hear it, stand in front of me, and only then will I believe that it is real.
In fact, this is irresponsibility. That person has all the freedom to check it out for himself. But does he take it upon himself to check it out? Or would he rather have someone else check it out, research it, and if nothing happens to him, then maybe eventually I'll agree to check it out myself. And this is what we call security, when in fact we have the infinite freedom to be ourselves. Endless freedom. We are the potential, we create our environment. And will we create something to destroy us? This is complete absurdity.
If I follow what you said today, if we ourselves choose it to be so, then yes,
And who does the choice depend on?
entirely on
Or
us.
society, perhaps. And who created society? We ourselves. Who created the environment? We ourselves. Whose reflection is this environment?
Ours.
And we are a reflection of the reflections we create. And now look at the paradox. If we break this ribbon of the circle and consider only that we are a reflection of society, what about the other part, that we created this society? Where does it go? And here is our own paradox. We consider one half, but we miss or consciously manipulate the other half. When to see her, when not.
At last, I want to ask you something. Something that is very interesting. If at this moment we imagine that as you and I are here, with all the cameras and people, the whole world is watching us at this very moment, and you have the chance to deliver a message that will affect everyone, and they will understand it, what would you say to them?
This moment, here and now, is an eternity in which I and everyone else are two polarities that form a vortex, a maelstrom, a tornado, and the more people that participate in this tornado, the faster we will realize the unity, that we are one, we are all one. And so the idea of exploring ourselves is by knowing ourselves and having a collective direction, the direction of knowing the environment by changing ourselves. This direction of knowing everything else but ourselves is the direction we call the direction of dedication or the direction of outwardness. And then let us be together for that one direction. Total commitment to it and for everything else, as well as complete dedication to it and for yourself.
Kudos and thanks, Ivo.
Thank you too.